Game Ball, the ultimate ammunition, providing you with this week's episode of the Tweedl Pod. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Tweedl Podcast with myself and my co-host Rob Fennick.
Hello everyone.
We are back at Churchills and we have a high-profile guest, very high-profile, the man behind the game fairs, or the game fair, plus many other little shows dotted around. Not little shows, that's the wrong thing to say, isn't it?
Well, they are compared to the game fair because that's such a monster, isn't it? I suppose.
It probably surprise you.
Yeah,
fair enough. It probably surprise you how many shows are underneath the umbrella, as it were.
We will hear all about them.
So welcome, James Gower.
Thank you very much. What an introduction.
That's right.
No, thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
So James, we always like to talk about how our guests sort of got into it and go back a bit before we get into the nitty-gritty. How have you ended up with, from my knowledge, the Game Fair, the Scottish Game Fair, the Northern Shooting Show, the Welsh Shooting Show, the Welsh Game Fair? Yeah. The list goes on. Go on,
keep going.
Well, the Blenheim International Horse Trials.
That you missed that one. So
we picked
the Gunmakers Evening.
Well,
Gunmakers Evening,
and a few more to be announced.
Yeah,
which is
put your microphone. That's
a few more pats to be announced as well.
Really? So you're
maybe you'll invite me back. You know,
yeah.
So you can announce those. So the world is expanding. It's just getting bigger. You're taking on more and more.
We feel very, very lucky. I mean, it's hard work. You know,
yeah, but
very, very hard work. People say to me, "What do you do to relax?" And I don't ever, which is
when you started out, you took on the game fair, didn't you, or the CLA game fair, I suppose, as it was then. You took that on then, didn't you?
Yeah, we took that on, and I'd had a life of events. So left school at 16, started an events company, and I was organising art fairs in barns, in farms, basically. And that was a business that grew and was eventually sold. And I worked on lots of events that you'd heard of, things like the Ideal Home Exhibition and the ski show and those sorts of things, and then quite a few you wouldn't have heard of, like like a tobacco show and those sorts of things, and tech events in Silicon Valley. Wow. So it's always for me been live events, mainly consumer. I ran the boat show for 7 years, both the Southampton and the London Boat Show.
Right. Wow.
And then had a bizarre experience taking Top Gear, the BBC show, into Asia with Clarkson and.
Good God, I never knew. What was that like?
Yeah, it was bonkers.
When you say took them, you had to.
Yeah. So I was the country manager for Hong Kong. We set up the whole thing. The boys came out and we would do. I don't know. A lot of people may have seen it in the UK. We did a live version of Top Gear.
Right.
And you can just imagine it. You know, all the rules went out the window.
Is it like you see from the outside? Is it
pretty much?
Yeah.
It's a commercial roller coaster, or was.
Yeah.
But incredible fun. But like I said, there weren't really any rules. I remember we were about to go live on the box office, and the South China Morning Post, which is, you know, sort of the daily morning newspaper, printed its front page in red, just red ink with a picture of Clarkson in slightly compromised position. And it said, "Do we want this man in our country?" And everyone went, "Yes, we do!" And we sold out. We sold all the tickets available.
Is that right?
Wow.
It was incredible. I remember doing something similar to this. I did a press conference with the Stig. And he just sat quiet for an hour, and that was it. You know,
you just asked him questions, and he just didn't
answer it. I think he flicked the bird actually at one point.
Charlie's Arstig, isn't he, Rob?
Yeah. Which is about the most he ever did. But yeah, so events. Since I was 16,
you've lived and breathed events.
Yeah,
wow. And always had an interest in field sports, shooting. This side that you're in now, or not?
So I'd been to the game fair as a punter. Been interested. Was brought up in the countryside. Lived in the countryside.
Yeah.
But the event world has made me sort of a little expert of nothing, really. So when I was organising the boat show, you know, I did a bit of boating. I became a terrible skier and now not a very good shooter.
Right.
But that's what the event world has done. You know, it's brought me close to lots of sports, lots of industries.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely loving what we're doing at the game fair.
And how did the opportunity come about then, James? Tell us that.
So it's a long story, but I'll give you a short, real short version. So having been in the events world pretty much all my life, the publishers of the show guide were due to deliver me some guides for a tech event I was doing in San Jose. And I was there, and usual thing, the show guides hadn't turned up. You know, it's classic event stuff. So I rang them and said, where are they? And they went, they'll be with you soon, James, and all a bit glum. And I'd known these guys for a while. I said, why so sad? And he said, we've just been told that we're not going to be doing the game fair anymore. Well, why is that then? Well, CLA seem to have wobbled and they're not going to do it any longer. So I'd been the year before. It seemed popular, huge numbers of people, amazing trade stands. I was like, well,
what a shame, yeah.
Couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
I think at that time as well, a friend of mine had launched Countryfile.
Yeah.
That had spooked a few people, but it hadn't spooked me. We'd had lunch, and he agreed, that his audience watched birds and my audience ate them. And there wasn't going to be a conflict at all. And after the first Countryfile Live, it was quite clear.
Is that still going?
No, it's gone.
I was going to say, it didn't happen this year, did it?
It didn't happen this year.
Well, I know, of course, you had yours at Blenheim, so right. But it's wrapped up the Countryfile Live show.
Yeah, I think it's finished completely and gone away. And in fact, I met the guy the other day, and he's on to bigger and better things anyway. But it was quite clear then that it just wasn't reflective of the true countryside, was it? It was a lot of people that liked daytime telly. They wanted a selfie with John Craven, but they weren't ever going to go and buy guns or spend money on beautiful things, and which is, of course, what our audience does. And I think it was about 200 million quid they spent this year. That wasn't going to happen at Countryfile. Possibly a flapjack, but most people bought their own lunch, didn't they, at Countryfile?
Yeah.
So it was a very
200 million spent at the game fair.
At the game fair.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was a huge audience at Blenheim, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a big audience.
It was phenomenal. Yeah.
It's notorious, although it was my first Blenheim. It's sort of notorious as a big spender.
So when it was announced, James and I obviously worked together for a long time, and we've done lots of business together. And when James said it was going to Blenheim, I rang him and said, you do know what this will be like? He was like, well, no, I don't, to be honest with you, because we've never been to Blenheim or done Blenheim. Of course, we've done game fairs for a lot of years. And I was like, it's massive. I said, just the audience is massive, the number of people, the location, just the everything
we've
about
only
it.
ever done it at Ragley, and this year was, for us, our best show ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic news.
Yeah. It really was.
And it's an event, isn't it, that's endured. So where are we now? It's 66, 67 years. It started in 1958. It's had about 6 million visitors now since it began.
Wow.
Quite a few of those are still alive. It's a British institution, really, isn't it? And for it to be bringing an audience still at that level, consistently, year after year, rain or shine. I've only seen it where the weather doesn't really make a difference, and that was at Game Fair and the Boat Show.
Yeah.
So, you either put your DeBarrys on and your Barber Jack, and you still turn up, don't you?
Yeah.
And they do that at the Boat Show too. They're sort of not too fussed about the weather.
Yeah.
But they come consistently year after year. It was the first big event back after the pandemic. So
because
that was our first one. That's the first one.
Boris was on the platform. Yes, you can. No, you can't. Yes, you can. No, you can't. We were confident that we could.
Yeah.
But lots of other events, like things like the RHS flower shows and Royal Highland and the Royal Welsh, they took 2 or 3 years to come back. Game Fair was back.
You were literally straight on it, weren't you?
Yeah. I think it was a month after lockdown. 125,000 people turned up.
And how many people came? How many people did Blenheim get?
It was about 136,000.
Was it? And that's the biggest one.
Biggest box office.
Yeah.
CLA have claimed 150 before, but I'm not sure how they were counting that. We looked at the car park figures for then and now, and we had more cars. But anyway,
it's still a wonderful.
It's splitting hairs, really. It was a fantastic attendance. the event is in but it does a lot. And we were talking about this. It's not just 3 days in the summer.
Yeah,
it's brought to life throughout the year, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's, as you know, I think it's really important for our industry, and we've been a big supporter of it. I know a lot of people have sort of tried to poo-poo it and everything else, but actually, I think the tide's turned now, hasn't it? Everybody seems to be wanting to get involved with the game, especially, with the game fair, and I think Blenheim's did it really a bit more momentum. It had some good momentum before that, but I think lots of people are getting involved, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough, Rob. It's nearly 10 years, which is bizarre, because you were one of the first customers I came to see.
Yeah.
And I remember driving, down here and thinking, where the hell am I going? And turned up here, and half the buildings here now weren't here then.
No.
Lots moved on in that time, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And you were, great support from the first one.
Yeah.
But people would say to me, what are you going to do without the CLA? And people that were 12 then are now 22.
exactly. Yeah, mindsets have changed.
Right, they're sat in my VIP enclosure, and they don't even remember they don't even know. When you say it used to, they don't know.
They don't even know. No.
Yeah.
So whole generations moved on.
Yeah.
More is being spent at the show than ever. There are more exhibitors than probably forever.
Yeah.
And it's I'm hoping next 60 years, it's that kind of thing.
Can you give us some fun statistics? I mean, things like when do you start building for the game fair? Let's a few things that would probably.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, on a physical basis, the team are there at least 6 weeks before.
Yeah.
And they're marking out and planning the aisles and where the toilets are going to go, that sort of thing. But of course, it's happening way before then.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ahead. Where's it going to go next? Contracts with estates. Lots of research going on. So the physical is about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But the planning is a year plus.
Yeah.
And how do you get everything? How do you do your electricity contracts and your toilet contracts, for example, and things? I mean, you must plan that miles in advance. I mean, how many toilets do you need for the game fair?
Yeah. Oh, crikey, I can't remember the precise number, but it's a lot. There are rules of thumb around, capacity, showers, what you need. And the events industry has got some sort of excellent guides and history that you can draw on. But again, during the pandemic, lots of the equipment went overseas. So hire companies couldn't hire it in the UK, so they sent it all to Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So when you ring up your regular suppliers and say, I need 1,000 toilets, they say, well, good luck, they're in Riyadh, So the supply chain was disruptive. A lot of it's to do with price, but you can't allow price to compromise quality. So there's a massive supply chain, a procurement process that happens when you select things which you'd think were as simple as toilets, showers, but even
not at all.
Fencing, marquees,
and
the jobs there. We've got vets and pilots and security guys and.
And the one thing I look at, because of obviously an outdoor show, I look at that track matting, and I just see that, and I know we've done various events, and I know when we've had to rent it, how expensive that stuff is.
Yeah.
Do you put a budget in for that, or do you use it because it must make such a massive difference if you have a dry spell and it's going to be dry and you don't need loads of track matting, or it's really wet and you do need it. I mean, that must be crippling. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Well.
In the UK, surely you can't budget for it being dry.
So again, secrets of the trade.
Yeah.
If you do put a lot of tracking down, your insurance comes down.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the insurers go, these are competent, reliable people. So it's a bit like insurance. You put loads and loads down, you don't need it. And you're like, oh. But, there are times when you need it.
Yeah.
We have never cancelled a game fair.
No.
So we've had worse rain.
God, I hope we're not cursing
which has
you.
in the
I know.
Can we all touch wood?
But, in the past, they have.
Yeah, no, they have,
When the weather wasn't as bad
as
when we've run it, without disruption. So I think we're good at what we do. We plan what we do, and we wouldn't compromise on that sort of thing. Because it's too important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Touch wood, because I've never had a wet game fair. In 4 years of Tweedle,
you are the lucky.
glorious.
Yeah. I think Rob and I, 2017 at Hatfield House, we had the most intense heat and sunshine, followed by a snowball fight. Because do you remember the hail came down?
The hail,
right?
It was just ridiculous. And 30 degrees one day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was
So,
just,
every kind of weather in one day.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it went on, and I think there were 120,000 that year, which shows, again, the resilience of that audience.
And where are you going next year for everybody listening?
So in 2025, we are back at Ragley. And, there are commercial things, contracts, all those sorts of things I have to consider. But we're always on the lookout. People are always inviting us to go to estates. Nothing's ever ruled out.
An estate must benefit massively from hosting the game fair.
Yeah, I think certainly they do. When we left,
Well, James gives them
Hatfield-
a big fat check.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Without hearing a figure, like,
they get a check. But when we left Hatfield House, they had Wi-Fi that could have run, NASA, because we'd put in huge pipes and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Technology continues to be, it's moving all the time. People talk to me continuously about Wi-Fi and it's not working and how can we improve it, and that's something we do. You won't believe the consultations going on at the office. We consult the Wireless Broadband Alliance, we consult independents.
Wow.
And try and improve all the time.
Yeah.
But technology is an issue.
I'm
So
go on.
So go on, mate.
No, you can stay on this topic if you're going to stay on this topic.
Just saying, so 2025 it's going to Ragley.
Yeah.
2026, do you know yet or not? Or
I can't say.
You
at
can't
the
say,
moment. I
right,
can't say
okay.
at the moment.
But
Fingers crossed for Tweedl for Blenheim.
Well,
Best show ever.
We've got some options.
Yeah.
We're looking at those.
Do you think it's important for it to roam around, or do you think? I mean, I remember the old days when it really did roam around. I mean, Yorkshire, and used to go to Harewood, and then it went across to Beaver one year, and then we'd been down at Broadlands, and what I'm interested to get your thoughts.
I think it's a very interesting question, and I think. I have a view which I'll share with you in a second, but there are lots of different views.
Yeah.
And people say to me that, Chelsea Flower Show's at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't move it, do they?
Yeah.
Why on earth you...
Yeah, Wimbledon's at Wimbledon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You don't, oh, God, it's at Wimbledon again.
But I think the estate is part of the narrative of the game fair, in a way. It's almost part of the content. So, if you go to the NEC, that venue houses the content.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the narrative, is it? You don't go to a show at the NEC to look at the venue.
No.
Whereas actually you do. It's part of your decision when you're going to a game fair.
Because you feel privileged to be able to walk around parklands of an estate that
Absolutely.
Churchill lived
and
at.
it's part of the story.
Absolutely.
And Ragley, very traditional. You can't just rock up there as a visitor. It's not open to the public. It's a traditional, wonderful English estate. Perfect and the right place to host a game fair for that reason, but also for the logistics, where it is, how you get in.
Yeah, it's well laid out.
And that's all proven that as a venue.
Yeah, it works well.
Whereas people went this year to Blenheim, where they could go anytime, but actually, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's in an amazing location. It's a bit trickier on logistics.
Certainly for the campsite.
Yeah, campsite, absolutely getting in and out.
A few of my mates were there, and if they missed the last car home, they had a hell of a walk back from the showground.
Absolutely. So
I would imagine that was the least of their problem after a skin full of beer.
Tom Hogarth.
Yeah.
It took 3 hours.
Some exhibitors got caught up getting in, and so there are pros and cons to each one.
Yeah.
Audience enjoyed Blenheim a lot. And we all saw that for sure.
Yeah, no, I certainly did, but
it must make
I was aware of the few that that the campsite and the queuing up for the exhibitors. I was there early, thankfully, but Ragley definitely seemed to work better from an exhibitor's point of view, but for sales, Blenheim blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
Catch-22s for everything, James. Can't please everyone.
No, absolutely.
Certainly not the shooting industry.
No. But we do a bet, and actually, a lot of people have been going for a long time. And it was you, Rob. I said to you, you probably know more about Blenheim than I do.
I know, when we chatted,
Lots of good things, because I remember people telling me about Blenheim 2008. That really, there were a lot of lessons learned about traffic management and those sorts of things.
Right.
And the traffic
I
worked
thought
well
the traffic
time.
this year was. I mean, we had loads of guests coming in all the time, and I thought the traffic this year was pretty good considering.
On set-up days.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The exhibitors were queuing up for
They
a
were,
while.
yeah.
But that was just one mistake by one security person. Do you remember? Who,
you know, it can
who was
be,
putting?
can't
It was as simple as that. I mean, literally, one chap was making everybody queue instead of if you had your tickets and knew where you were going, you could just go straight down there.
Yeah, but he had a high vis on, mate, and that
He
was
had a high vis on.
his moment.
But, you know, that's what. So behind the scenes, there's a control centre with CCTV pictures. We can see the traffic going out quite a few miles out. You got drones in the air. There's a huge operations department.
Amazing, isn't it?
And around that hub, you've got all the blue light services, all the health and safety.
It's interesting, isn't it?
You know,
It's a massive undertaking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. It is. It's a big
So
undertaking.
you've got this massive undertaking. That's your baby, and then you go, oh, let's go and do it at other places as well, and let's take more on.
That happened in Scotland. So the GWCT, fabulous organisation, had been running that event at Scone. It's a beautiful event.
Yeah.
I mean, the character of it, its location, where it is, and it does stay in one place.
Yeah.
Cool. And it seems to work very, very well there. It's smaller, gets about 35,000 visitors. Its personality is different. It's very Scottish, which is right. But again, the pandemic had caused them to pause, and they were looking for a risk partner that would allow it to carry on. I think it had a hiatus of 2 years, and we were beginning to be aware that there were a few people thinking, if they don't do it, we will. So we thought, well, if someone's going to,
We will.
it ought to be us, but we ought to be doing it with the GWCT for that continuity and all the fundraising that goes on there for all the good causes and things that the GWCT
Absolutely.
do. So that was almost fate that brought us together, that allowed it to carry on. And again, I can't believe it. Under our stewardship, we've now done 4.
Yeah.
And we did that. That was another event back. And of course, again, during the pandemic, Scotland was trailing a month behind us. Do you remember? So all the decisions the English government were making took 4 weeks longer.
Right.
So again, we were like, is this going to happen? Are we going to be okay?
Yeah.
And that year it did move to September. And it was a glorious September. The sun was shining and the crowds came. And again, I think it's that audience resilience.
Yeah.
They just went, it's on, we're going.
Yeah.
And they all turned up, which is brilliant.
And then Wales followed.
Yeah, Wales. There always had been, I think for 20 years, quite a successful event in Wales. It's very divided, isn't it, in terms of its north and south.
Yeah.
And we were approached by an estate, the Vaynol estate, which is quirky and fabulous. Again, we teamed up with the GWCT there to test it. We tested it for 2 years. I think there's something there, but we had been promised quite a lot of funding from the Welsh Government.
Right.
I think there was a change of leadership there, and that funding didn't ever come through. So it's possibly part of the future. We still own the brand.
Yeah.
We still protect the property and our interests there.
Yeah.
And if we can find a solution financially to make that work, we would go and do it.
Yeah.
But it does need.
I went to the second one, and it's a beautiful setting.
The setting's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's some tunnels under the Vaynol estate, some railway tunnels, which are now turned into a rifle range.
Wow.
When the current owner discovered the tunnels, it was harbouring a massive cannabis factory, which is where the story for the gentleman comes.
I was going to
Is that
say,
right?
Yeah. So it's like the real life gentleman.
that is amazing.
But if you go there now, there's a rifle range there, and it's extraordinary.
Yeah. Sounds it.
The tunnels had the Royal Train in there just before the the now king, then prince, had his investiture at Carnarvon. And that was the last train that was ever in there. And then it became a cannabis factory. And then it became a rifle range.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
There you see.
Sounds like an epic rifle range.
Exclusive on the Tweedl podcast.
Yeah.
And
then hang on, Yorkshire. Northern Shooting Show.
Northern Shooting Show. Before we move on.
Again, the pandemic had been a bit of a catalyst there. The founders wanted a plan for continuity, and the industry, they actually put their business into administration, and the exhibitors lost their money. And so
never a good thing to bring back up faith with them.
No, and legally we could have just bought that from the and carried on, but actually we credited all the exhibitors.
Yeah, fair dues.
So had they set a deposit with the old organisers, we honoured that.
Wow, well done.
And allowed them to carry on. So hopefully we were able to give something back to that industry.
Yeah.
We gave them 2 years to do it. We're now in our third year. Well, we just did our third year.
Yeah.
We're looking at our fourth.
Yeah.
It's the only sort of true consumer-only shooting show. It's got a unique indoor and outdoor space. I don't know if you're able to insert graphics into the podcast, but I'll share with you the heat map. It's a national show. Gets a big audience over 2 days, and we're investing in it and looking to grow that.
Yeah.
Basque again are partners in it. Basque are very good partners.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did that come about, James? Was this your idea, or did they want to do it? Or
I think again, having been in events for it seems like forever, I had done a similar venture with the RYA, the Royal Yachting Association, for boating. So boating wanted to see new people into boating, young people into boating, wanted to grow the sport. And at the time, 20 quid for a boat show ticket for a young person, a lot of money, and for a family that ended up being 100 quid. So I'd seen the initiative work for the RYA at the boat shows, and Basque at the time, very, very forward thinking. We had a discussion about what can we do to grow the industry, grow Basque, introduce new people, because Basque could get complimentary entry, hundreds of them, thousands of them, like 25,000 of them, bring a friend, and some of those friends are introduced to shooting for the very first time. They come along to the game fair or the National Shooting Show thinking that they like dogs or fishing and end up shooting. And you must come across it all the time, the people that say, I had my first go at shooting at the game fair.
Yeah.
We spoke about that before.
That to me is really important. That there are lots and lots of shooters at the game fair and the shooting show, but there are lots and lots that can be, and they're the future, aren't they? That's where we can get growth. That's where the exhibitors can meet new people, and so that Basque arrangement, it's pretty fantastic, really.
Yeah.
It's free to park, and it's free to come in.
Yeah,
it's bonkers.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Why would you not come?
Yeah.
And tens of thousands of them do, which is great.
Yeah, good for you.
And you just let them in free of charge, and that's your relationship with Basque.
Yeah, and they can come in for all 3 days if they want to.
Yeah.
And how much is it? How much is it admission now? What was it at this year
I
at
think
Blenheim?
if you book in advance, don't quote me on this, but it's about 25 quid, and if you do it on the gate, it's about 35
For the Northern?
No, for the Northern, it's 20 odd.
Right.
But if you're a Basque member,
it's free.
You register in advance, and then it's complimentary, and then you can bring guests at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
And the other thing we've done, which is part of our model and part of our funding, it's no longer enough just to rely on your standard revenue streams. So we enjoy now fantastic sponsorship.
Yeah.
From places you wouldn't imagine. We've had lots of funding from places like Abu Dhabi and Qatar, and the whole sort of falconry scene has brought money to us. Banks, private wealth businesses, and that's really important. The ticket revenue and of course the exhibitor fees are very, very important.
Yeah.
But you need more nowadays. So when people book, I say, do you want to bring a dog? It's free, but just let me know. And so I now know who the dog owners are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a database of 70,000 dog owners. And then that's important to people that have pet insurance or sell dog food.
Yeah, amazing.
So we're to prop up the cost of the game fair, which is millions and millions and millions. We're generating revenue beyond the 3 days. We have to generate the funds all year round to pay for it.
And just what I hear often is, certainly from home, I'm northwest England, Preston, Lancashire, and a lot of lads from round home won't travel to the game fairs or the Northern, and you sort of say why, and it's like, well, it's not like it used to be, and there's not many deals. There used to be loads of deals, and you get stuff for cheap. And from my point of view as an exhibitor, I appreciate why there's not as many deals. I mean, I don't really know exactly what they mean, but I assume buy a jacket, or there used to be a discounted game fair rate or whatever, and I'm sure certain people still do that. From an exhibitor's point of view, which is me, it's expensive as an exhibitor to have a stand, but relative to everything's more expensive, and that's the way it is. And I just feel like, how do we bring that back? Is it bringing it back? I don't really know. Do you know what I mean, though? A lot of people sort of don't support the game fairs. I certainly felt it at the Northern Shooting Show when we were there. I think it was your first year when we had a stand. There wasn't so many supporting it, and I think it's important that they do support it, but their argument is, well, it's expensive and blah, blah, blah. It's a catch-22, and I know I don't want to put you in a difficult position.
No,
but,
you're not.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, so if I take the two sections, so exhibitors, there's a fee to attend the game fair, but
Correct.
I'm very, very conscious it doesn't stop there. You've got your accommodation, and you've got
travel and everything.
You've got your staff, you've got time out of the office.
Yeah.
So it has to pay. And if you're selling knockdown kit, it probably isn't going to pay.
Exactly.
So actually what you want to concentrate on is the quality. A lot of people come for advice, for information. Sometimes it's a social, it's a big social gathering.
Yeah.
Friday at the game fair is quite a big B2B attendance, isn't it? So people have changed the way they exhibit in order to get a return.
Yeah.
Some can measure that return there and then.
Yeah.
I've come to sell guns, I've sold guns. And luckily, they keep coming back. So, it
must be doing.
It ought to be working. Other people measure it in a different way. We keep the stand prices as low as we can, and we do that by bringing in sponsorship. And without sponsorship, we'd have to charge double, and then people would start to question it. So, the sponsors in a way subsidise the rates, and that's how we make it viable. But for visitors, so again, lots come. In fact, probably more than ever. But you're right. Are there people out there that used to come that don't? I think if they did, they'd be surprised.
I do.
I think they'd come and go, oh, actually, it is as good, or maybe even better.
I do. I agree with that.
And I think they'd go, oh, my mate down the pub was wrong. It's actually bigger, better. It's thriving more than ever. But if you want a deal on a jacket, you should probably go online. Yeah. But if you want an amazing day out and support the industry and meet your
Exactly
friends
that.
and look after the trade and discuss the future and give a home to the government and to lobby and bring kids in and introduce new people to the sport and encourage the next generation,
It's important they come.
you should probably turn up to the game fair.
Yeah.
And you might learn something. As I say, if you want a jacket, go online.
What a great answer. He's made my question look stupid, James.
No comment.
No, it's,
But it's important, isn't it? That,
It is
It's
important.
not just
no,
about,
I just hear
I
that
agree.
a lot.
Look,
I hear that a lot, and I wanted you to,
I agree, and I think there's other businesses as well that should be supporting it. I think they take a lot from the industry, and they do very well.
Yeah.
And I believe they should be there supporting it. For me, we've said it from day one. We've always supported it. We love it. We want to grow. We want to be a leading light in the industry, and we want to give back. And for us, going to the game fair is two things for us. The game fair is about engaging with all our regular customers, especially at Blenheim, but even at Ragley, it's about engaging with them all, looking after them, giving them a drink, catching up with them, and giving them a little safe haven to sit down if that's what they need.
Same for us.
And then the other part is, we obviously want to sell kit and engage with people who might thought, oh, I'm a long way from Churchills or whatever, and from here, from the gun room, want to go and look at their guns, and we can show them there and all that.
Yeah.
And it's and
For
we've
us,
been lucky.
we're 99% online. and so we never get to see our customers really, apart from in the field. And to see them at the game fair is fantastic, and that's why we do it. And if they want to buy a ticket while they're there, brilliant.
Well, you mentioned some fun facts, and I said it takes 6 weeks to build it and millions of pounds and all that sort of thing. But I think some of the more important facts, had I not picked it up from the CLA, would someone else? They may have done. But if I look back on 9 years and looking forward to the 10th, we've had over 1 million visitors that perhaps wouldn't have come. 30-40% of those are new. So 400,000 people exposed to our industry, our sports and what we do. 100,000 kids that don't pay to come, that have tried shooting, picked up an air gun, thrown an axe, something for the first time. Been in a restaurant, tried venison, been surprised, wondered why the hell James Martin's there. Is this all right, what we're doing? Is this okay? Well, it must be. So there's 1 million odd people that have been educated, inspired, learnt something, and they're probably in your shops buying guns, shopping venison, that wouldn't have done otherwise. So I think that's the important thing. 3 days in the summer is really important, and it's very, very important. But it's everything that happens around it, isn't it? That's equally as important.
Well, Tweedl will be there for a long time.
Thank you.
Hopefully, as long as Tweedl is alive.
So now, with your GWCT links in Scotland, the GWCT are a fantastic organisation, but you raised quite a sum of money, didn't you, with the Scottish Game Fair?
Well, so the Scottish Game Fair, which is now a partnership, as I say, they ran it for decades, really successfully at Scone, and the pandemic brought us together in a way, and through that venture, we've been able to contribute, as part of the partnership, about £600,000. Next year it'll be £750,000.
Wow!
And of course, their scientific programs, what they do, is
it's fantastic.
Very,
work.
very important. I think that combination of Basque's size and power and what they're able to do with information like that works in harmony, doesn't it, with the people that are collecting the data and doing the science.
Absolutely.
And to be able to do that in England and then in Scotland is a big part of it and a big part of the future.
Well done, James. Well,
Amazing.
thank you very much for coming to see us today, and keep up the good work. We look forward to the Game Fair next year.
Yes, we do.
And finding out where it's going to be in 2026, and we will support you there as well, I'm no doubt. But
thanks, guys.
If you haven't been in previous years, make sure you go and support.
It is a fantastic effort. And go to Tweedl and they'll give you a free beer. And
correct.
If all 150,000 go there and have a beer.
Yeah, you don't need a posh wristband for my stand. James, thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, James. Cheers.
Everybody like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate it. New episodes every Sunday. Thanks for watching. See you later.
Well, Sammy, thank you, everyone.
James. Bye-bye.